When I make my videos, I get comments from people who go off of what they feel is right, observations they have made, or what other people say. I got comments on immigration from people who are saying that all immigrants used to come here illegally, and there's no such thing as being illegal now, that back in the day this was a free-for-all, and yada yada yada. So I'm taking you guys on a very short history lesson about immigration in America and how the laws began being established. A month ago I posted this video, Why Do Many Americans Dislike Illegal Immigration? Simply put, now, today, 2019, it is illegal and people behave differently back in the day than we see people behave now. And conduct does matter. So I get this reply, you have contradicted yourself. How can illegal immigration have started the process of creating laws that would outlaw it? It was not illegal before the laws banned it. Face it, your grandparents came here by the same process that today is illegal, and that's fine except for everyone who pretends they have some superiority with my grandparents followed the law, and yada yada yada. However, rereading this comment, how can illegal immigration have started the process of creating laws that would outlaw it? Simply because too many people were coming in this country. In fact, this country was not built to originally allow anyone in, and you don't learn this stuff in the history books or in school. This is outside of what you are generally taught. So then I went on to find this channel, The Young Turks, a while ago, and I thought I stumbled across something good until I saw their videos and realized that they are not so great. If you look at their track record, they upload a video almost every hour, and their videos lack substance. It's very superficial information based on feelings and biased opinions, so I will do a separate video on that because there's some good stuff here. But they posted this video, Tomi Lahren gets owned on immigration, as if that's supposed to be some sort of mic drop or amazing thing that they're doing. So I saw part of the video and posted this comment. This whole video gave no valid points. How is Tomi responsible for her ancestors' actions? I may not agree with everything Tomi says, but no, she did not get owned. So this girl responds, she isn't responsible for her grandparents' actions. You are missing the point of the video. She is an entitled brat who is benefiting from the labor of her immigrant grandparents who after 40 years still don't want to learn English. She is collecting the fruit of their labor. Her grandparents probably fled war zones / bad environments and came to America for a better life. If it wasn't for that, she wouldn't exist. She should be grateful for immigrants because she is a second generation American because of immigrants. Instead, she acts like a spoiled and so on and so on. I did reply to this, but I just want to say that when people come to this country, they don't come just for themselves. They come to benefit the rest of their family, their children, their grandchildren. So yes, she is benefiting off of them because that's what they wanted for their future children and grandchildren. That's the point. And another thing, just because someone looked into her background and found out that her grandparents didn't speak English doesn't mean that they really didn't speak English. For 40 years, they lived in the US where English is spoken. I'm pretty sure they caught on to some things. So let's start the history lesson. A timeline of US immigration. So before the British and other Europeans came to North America, and notice I'm saying North America, which includes Canada as well. At the time, it wasn't called Canada, obviously. It wasn't called the United States, Alaska, and all that. But all of this that you see here is North America. So before any Europeans came, other people migrated from Asia. There were definitely explorers that had sailed to Iceland and Greenland and even explored Canada. So no, Columbus did not discover America. The Europeans just colonized here. By the 1600s, European communities started forming. The Spanish went to Florida, the British in New England and Virginia, the Dutch in New York, the Swedes in Delaware. Pilgrims and Puritans came for religious freedom, and there were the Africans who came against their will. Thomas Paine was a revolutionary whose crisis papers influenced the American Revolution. He wrote a pamphlet called Common Sense. And because he was a revolutionary, obviously he argues for American independence. The American Revolution is a crucial point in history because it signified the break between the US and Europe, mainly Britain. The US wanted to be its own independent nation. So the Young Turks were angry at Tomi Lahren because she said certain people should be allowed in this country with skill and anything that can contribute to this country. Well, take a look at this. In 1790, Congress passed the first law about who should be granted US citizenship. Some of you reading this will probably say, but this is a distinction between black and white people, so it's not fair. But hold on. Look at this. The Naturalization Act of 1790 allows any free white person of good character, and it's in quotations, good character. Putting people of any kind of racial background aside, good character. Why is that important? Because you want someone productive in society. And keep in mind, back then, there was no welfare. Now, sadly, considering the time, 1790, Anyone who was not white could not have a citizenship, which meant that they were not under the protection and benefits of a citizen. August of 1790. The first census is taken, and the English are the largest ethnic group among the 3.9 million people counted. 1815. There's peace between US and Britain after the War of 1812. The Irish start coming to the US and causes a shift in the demographics of the US. This immigration lasts until the Civil War, and that started in 1861. So the Irish now account for 1/3 of all immigrants in the US. Then 5 million German immigrants also came to the US looking for land to settle in: Milwaukee, St. Louis, and Cincinnati. In 1819, many of the immigrants are sick and causing problems at the ports because there are too many of them. So the US passes the Steerage Act of 1819 requiring better conditions on ships. This is when the act also called for demographic information, creating the first federal records on the ethnic composition of immigrants. 1849, the Know Nothing Party, they are against the immigrants coming in because there are too many, mostly against the German and Irish. In 1875, after the Civil War, states start passing their own immigration laws. So then the Supreme Court took over. Between 1880 and 1920, there was another sudden wave of immigration, and they settled in the big cities. The Chinese Exclusion Act happened because there were too many Chinese immigrants who came around the 1850s, so this act was passed to bar any more Chinese from coming in. This act in 1882 is the first in history to place a major restriction on one kind of immigrant group. But wait, it gets better. In 1891, there are further exclusions. And that includes polygamists, people convicted of crimes, sick, diseased, and this goes on to create an immigration office, which now includes officers or immigration enforcement and ports of entry. Look at the date, 1891. Guys, this stuff is already being enforced. And as this stuff is being enforced, Ellis Island opens in 1892. This is now the official entryway to the US because an entry had to be made. Think clearly for a moment, okay? When you're starting something new, trial and error. Keep that in mind, trial and error. And as this country was growing, laws were starting to be put into place to better organize it. Port of entry, Ellis Island. Guess what? Border wall between US and Mexico. Port of entry, there is an entrance. Port of entry between US and Canada. I think you get it. So today, people arguing that their ancestors and my ancestors and whose ever ancestors came in illegally, no. Laws were starting to be put into place because too many people were coming in and there was no way to originally control this. Now, there is a legal way to come in, and that was Ellis Island. 1907 hit its peak with 1.3 million people entering Ellis Island. In 1907, Japan also signed the Gentleman's Agreement and agreed to limit the amount of Japanese coming into the US. In return, President Roosevelt urges California to stop segregating Japanese from white people, mainly students. 1910, 3/4 of NYC are immigrants. With World War I, 1917, the Immigration Act now requires literacy for immigrants and also stops immigration from most Asian countries. Wait, it gets better. 1924, the Immigration Act limits the number of immigrants allowed into the U.S. yearly. How? By quotas. Under this new system, the U.S. issues immigration visas to 2% of the total number of people of each nationality in the United States at the 1890 census. However, the law actually favors immigration from North and West European countries. Britain, Ireland, and Germany account for 70% of all available visas. Anything else was limited, but it completely excludes Asia and the Philippines. So because of this limitation, now illegal immigration increases. What is that I said? Illegal? Could I have possibly used the word illegal? Yes, I did. This is in 1924. There's a U.S. Border Patrol, and it's cracking down on illegal immigration crossing from the Mexican and Canadian borders in the US. So that guy that accused me of having grandparents that came here the same way illegally, well, they would have had to have been born in the 1920s or 30s or 40s or whatever, but by this time, there is such a thing as illegal immigration. So no, they would have come in the right way, especially from Europe, because there's only one way to get here, by boat. Before we had the problem with illegal immigration from Mexico, most of the illegals were Asians because they were barred from entering the US legally. So during World War II, there was a labor shortage, and Mexican agricultural workers were allowed to enter the US temporarily. Two words here, allowed and temporarily. Allowed means you were given permission. Temporarily means for a short amount of time. And today people still do this from Europe when they come here with student visas or visas in general. Their visas expire and they don't leave. Their visas allow them to be here temporarily. After that, they are illegal. Crossing the border without using the entrance means you are illegal. So by now, 1948, the US passes the nation's first refugee and resettlement law to deal with the influx of Europeans. 1952, the McCarran-Walter Act ends the exclusion of Asians. During the Cold War, the US admits millions of refugees. Then there was the Fidel Castro incidents in the 60s where the US took in unaccompanied children. By 1965, the original quota ends, which favored racial and ethnic groups over others. Now, back to Young Turks and Tomi Lahren. The quota system is replaced with a 7-category preference system emphasizing family reunification and skilled immigration. 1965, skilled immigration. However, because America, being the great nation that it is, would still take in immigrants and refugees from war-torn countries, including Asia, Vietnam, and Cambodia, which quadrupled in size. In 1980, Cuban refugees made their way to Florida seeking political asylum. And once again, without having to, in 1986, Reagan signs a law granting amnesty to more than 3 million immigrants living illegally in the US. However, thinking moment right now, how many times do you think that this can happen before this country becomes overcrowded, overpopulated, and has too many people pouring in illegally? I mean, we can do it. We can still do it now and sign off every single illegal that's in this country. But what would you think would be the outcome if we do it again next year, the year after, and 10 years from now, with every single year in between? And then you can just pause and read these for yourself. And these are some more sources from this article. As always, I have my sources in the description box so you can check it out. So I added these pictures because I wanted to show you guys what immigrants and immigration looked like back then. It was a big deal. People were coming to a new country. There was excitement. Of course, there was sadness, especially in war-torn areas. But the hope here is for a new life and a better life too. This one says, many immigrants, including this Algerian man, wore their finest traditional clothing as they entered the country, because this was a big deal. This is Ellis Island. This picture was taken in 1903. This is what these boats look like with these people. Those of you who have parents or grandparents or even you yourselves are immigrants, there's no way that you can look at this picture and not feel something. Because for many of you, this represents your history and the reason you're in this country. And these are all the people who did it legally. I mean, remember, this whole thing about illegal and legal was already established in the late 1800s. And by the 1920s, it was official. I mean, look at what these people are doing. They're coming in with documents so that they can legally be processed. So I absolutely hate comments like the one I just got from that one commenter that told me that I contradicted myself on illegal immigration because illegal immigration is what started the process of creating laws. Yes, it did. Illegal immigration is what started creating these laws in order to have order and secure this country. When you see there's a problem, you fix it. So no, I did not contradict myself, and assumptions were made about me in that comment that this person didn't even know about. I never gave my history of anything, where I live, where I'm from, what I look like. And no, they did not turn up at Ellis Island with no right to be in America. Ellis Island became that rite of passage. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Make sure your notification bell is turned on so you can get updates for new videos and answers to your comments.
Educate yourself!